Several years later, when I was 15, I had just gotten a Facebook account. I wasn't really that active on there, but one time when I logged in, I had received a friend's request. With it was a message. "Hi, remember me? We used to play when we were kids. How are you nowadays? Wade." Weird. Someone was pranking me for sure, but who and why? The only people who knew about Wade were me and my parents. I clicked on his profile photo, and on there was a really old picture of him looking just the way he did when I used to play with him. I accepted his friend's request, and a few minutes later, I received a message from him. "Hi, how are you?" I had no idea what to write. "Who is this?" I asked. "Wade. We used to play when we were kids. Every day after school, remember?" He started asking me about my life, and I told him everything was about the same, only I was obviously older. He got really excited when he heard I was still living on the same street, and he wrote that it would be amazing to see it all again. I tried asking him about himself, but he wasn't really answering any of my questions. He then wrote that he needed to go, and that he hoped we could talk again soon. I stayed on his profile page for a long time, trying to find more information about him. He had hundreds of friends from all over the world, but the rest of his photo albums only contained pictures of trees and mountains. When my mom came home from work, I showed her his profile. At first, she didn't really get what I was showing her, but when I showed her the name, she raised her eyebrows. "Is that supposed to be Wade?" she asked. "I guess," I said. "But he wasn't real," said Mom. I showed her his messages, and she started laughing. "You're pulling my finger, aren't you?" she said. But I wasn't. She read through our conversation, and afterwards, Mom seemed genuinely shocked. "Oh my God," she said. "He was real, and we didn't believe you. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." Tears started streaming down her face. What have we done? I could see the regret in Mother's face, but I had already forgiven her a long time ago. I mean, she hadn't done anything wrong, and as time had passed, I had understood that Wade wasn't real. This whole thing was just so bizarre. "Mom, I didn't think he was real either," I said. Then a new message came through. It was from Wade. It was just a smiley, but Mom straight away wrote, "Hi, Wade." He wrote hi back. Mom said, "We should invite him over. I feel I owe him an apology." It suddenly felt like a good idea. I needed to see him with my own eyes. When Mom asked him if he wanted to come, he wrote yes, followed by a million smileys. It was like he had waited for that question all along. We decided he could come a Saturday when we were all at home. When Dad heard about it, he was really intrigued. I remember feeling really nervous. When the doorbell rang, we all ran to the front door. We opened, and there he was, Wade. I could see him, Mom could see him, and Dad could see him. His hair was a bit darker than I had remembered, but it was him. He was a teenager. He was holding a big box of chocolates. My parents let him in, and we all sat in the front room. It felt a bit awkward at first. My mother and Dad sheepishly apologized for them not believing he existed and not letting me play with him, but he just smiled and said it was okay. Mom asked where he had been all this time, and he said he had been so many places he couldn't even remember them all. He talked about the Sahara Desert, about the heat of the African sun, and the unbelievable cold of the Andes. He talked about the northern lights in Scandinavia, and the blinding neon lights of New York. He talked about playing soccer with kids in Brazil, and jumping in puddles in Great Britain. It was fascinating and weird at the same time. I could see my parents were completely in love with him, and I felt I was crushing a little bit too. My mom suggested me and Wade go out for a little walk down the block so Wade could see how much our street had not changed. Wade smiled and said, "Of course." We walked down the street and talked about basically nothing. He took my hand, and I felt my heart skip a beat. "It's great to see you getting along with your parents again," he said. Maybe it was good that we stopped seeing each other. I didn't know what to say to that. We stopped next to a street lamp. "I missed you a lot," he said. "I missed you too," I said shyly. "But now we have Facebook," I said. "We could talk every day if we wanted to." "I don't know if that's enough," he said. He took me in his arms and hugged me. I pressed my face against his chest, and I felt loved, protected, and safe all at the same time. I felt like I belonged there in his arms forever and always. I held on to him and didn't want to let go. It wasn't enough just to write to him every day. He was mine, and I was his, right there, under that lamp. I knew he could be my whole world if I only let him. He kissed my forehead and took a step back. "Come with me. Come with me." I took his hand and slowly followed him. Then I stopped. He noticed my hesitation, and we looked at each other for a long time. The street lamp was illuminating his whole face, but his eyes looked dark, like there was no color in them whatsoever. The more I looked into them, the more empty they looked. A strange feeling came over me. "I can't," I said. He let go of my hand. "I probably need to go home now," he said. "I know there's a bus stop up ahead. You want me to follow you?" I asked. "Nah," he said. He hugged me once more, waved, and started walking. I stood under the street light and looked at him. The further away he got, the smaller he seemed to get. It was like he was slowly shrinking, turning into that boy I remembered, until I couldn't see him anymore. A few days later, my mom said we should write to Wade and thank him for visiting us. I opened my messages, but I couldn't find his messages anywhere. And what was even more odd was that I couldn't find his profile anymore either. I couldn't ask anyone about him either because we didn't have any mutual friends. Hi everyone, thanks for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not leave a thumbs up? And while you're at it, subscribe to my channel. I love reading your comments. And if you have a story you would like to share, send me a message. Take care everyone, and be safe.